home isolation, a patient should remain alone in a room with its own restroom.
Sila lang po sa kwarto, they cannot interact also with their families. Kanilang pamilya, especially those that had been exposed to the patient, kailangan nilang mag-quarantine.
Patient and close contacts isolation and quarantine last at least 21 days.
The incubation test, everybody who has fever, dahil mauubusan din po ang resources natin, it's not very practical and rational.
No treatment for monkeypox has yet been approved in the country, so symptoms will be treated as they appear.
Bagamat rare ang fatality rate ng monkeypox, mayroon din pong 10% chance kung tatamaan kayo nito, lalong-lalo na kung kayo ay immunocompromised.
To prevent its spread, DOH advises patients to avoid scratching or manipulating the skin. Keep the lesions dry, clean, and covered. Doctors also advise disinfecting commonly touched surfaces, practicing good hand hygiene, and avoiding direct contact with possibly contaminated materials like patients' bed linens and used clothing. It's also best to use separate utensils.
Lahat ng mga gamit yan, bago mo hawakan, magsuot ka ng gloves, no? Hugas ng kamay, magsuot ng gloves, and then ilagay mo siya sa tamang lagayan na hindi ma-access at hindi magalaw ng ibang tao.
Health officials remind the public anyone could get monkeypox through close contact, exchange of body fluids, and through respiratory droplets. But unlike COVID-19, it doesn't spread through the air over long distances. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
Vergara clarifies the Filipino in Singapore found positive for monkeypox is different from the Philippines' first case. The health department sees no need yet to tighten border controls to prevent the entry of more monkeypox cases. The agency points out intensified surveillance efforts are needed. The country's first monkeypox case was a 31-year-old Filipino who arrived from abroad last month. The patient had prior travel to countries with documented monkeypox cases.
Hindi po natin papalitan ang ating restrictions sa ngayon sa ating borders. Unang-una, even the WHO has declared that this virus, the threat of this virus is low to moderate risk. At sinabi din nila, hindi natin kailangang itigil ang trade, hindi natin kailangan mag-restrict ng ating borders. No recommendations from our experts regarding this matter. Ang kailangan natin lahat gawin is to intensify our surveillance efforts. Ang ating mga kababayan, dapat lahat tayo alam natin ang simptomas.
Vergara says the first case had no symptoms when he arrived, but the patient had a fever which resolved before his flight back to the Philippines. Rashes only appeared a few days after arrival. We're learning more about the wake and funeral arrangements for former President Fidel V. Ramos. The bereaved family released details just this afternoon. Our George Quiles joins us live from the gates at Heritage Park in Taguig. George, what do you know so far?
While grieving, the family of the former president wants to celebrate his life dedicated to service to the country. They released a schedule of the wake of former President Fidel Ramos. Which will start on August 4, Thursday. They also designated certain dates and time for different groups and sectors to pay the last respects. This is to manage the flow of the guests and ensure that COVID-19 health protocols will be followed. August 4 is dedicated to government officials and members of the Ramos cabinet. August 5 is for government officials, members of the diplomatic corps and civil society groups, and members of the media who covered Ramos in the Defense Department and Malacanang. August 6 is for military and law enforcement members, veterans, and members of the Rotary Club of Manila. Public viewing will be on August 7 and 8. The burial will be on August 9, Tuesday, at 10 a.m. at Dalibingan ng mga bayani. The family of the former president expresses their gratitude to all those who have sent their messages of sympathy and support. They also sent their thanks to the armed forces and the office of the president for their assistance. Pia.
George, where are FDR's remains now, and does his family have requests for guests at the wake?
Well, Pia, the niece of the former president, Leila Shahani, says the family wants some private time as they grieve here at the Heritage Park. Now, for those who will visit the wake, they are requesting them to wear white. And for those who plans to send flowers, they are requesting them to instead donate to the foundations that are close to the heart of the former president. Pia?
George Cahilas there reporting. As the country mourns the former President Ramos, we look back at a CNN Philippines exclusive interview in 2016 where Mr. Ramos talked about the lessons he learned as chief executive, the challenges then President-elect Rodrigo Duterte would face, and the opportunities they both had to unite the nation after a divisive election. The full interview airs tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. and again, same time on Saturday, August 6. Coming up on Newsnight, all eyes on U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Asia and a possible stopover in Taiwan, a move frowned upon by China. And a lawmaker wants an extra month's pay for Filipino workers. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines. This is Newsnight on CNN Philippines. The government is working to address a possible shortage of sugar with prices on the rise. President Bongbong Marcos, who is also Agriculture Secretary, met with his department and sugar industry stakeholders Friday. A DA official says the agency will meet again with concerned sectors tomorrow to discuss the recommended volume of sugar needed.
We have to make sure first we have a proper inventory kung ano yung ating supply situation before we can even recommend kung magkano pa, gaano karaming volume pa po ang kakailanganan. But what we are looking at right now is the supply at hand, no? Dito kung ano ang meron tayong supply dito sa ating bansa, and most likely how to make this sugar available para sa ating mga household consumers. Dahil po alam natin na ang ating sugar po, yung pag-demand po ang pinag-uusapan, nahahati po yan sa household consumption tsaka sa industrial.
The Sugar Regulatory Administration recently said supply could run out this month if the government does not import. Senators speak up on President Marcos's decision not to rejoin the International Criminal Court. Senator Bato de la Rosa among those who support the move. He calls himself the #2 accused in the ICC probe into the Duterte administration's drug war. De la Rosa was National Police Chief at the height of the drug war in 2016.
Lalabas at lalabas ang katotohanan, but not before them, before a Filipino court. Palabasin natin katotohanan dito sa Filipino court na ito. Eh kung nga sa inyo right here, right now, pwede nyo akong bitayin. Basta magbitay sa akin yung korte ng Pilipinas.
Senate Committee on Foreign Relations Vice Chairman Francis Tolentino says the move reflects the country's independent foreign policy and sovereignty. Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva says while he respects the president's decision, the country should consider returning to the ICC. He hopes to speak to Mr. Marcos or to send a message either through Senate President Mig Zubiri or presidential sister Senator Amy Marcos. Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel disagrees with the policy, but he notes the decision is a presidential prerogative. Pimentel's only colleague in the minority, Risa Ontiveros, calls Mr. Marcos's move regrettable. Ontiveros says she hopes the president will not block investigations of supposed violations that took place before the country withdrew from the Rome Statute in 2019. Needy senior citizens are set to get double their monthly pensions. The bill raising the pension from 500 to 1,000 pesos has lapsed into law. Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva says some 4 million senior citizens are expected to benefit from the law. Villanueva says the law would need a funding of 22 to 24 billion pesos per year. Without a budget this year, he says funding may come from tax proceeds from offshore gaming operators and so-called sin taxes, among others.
I have to admit na when we passed this law, wala pang budget nung pinas natin yung batas, no? So that's reality. Number two, kung meron tayong magagawa, as we mentioned a while ago, and we are looking and monitoring the agencies and departments, sino yung gumagastos. I cannot promise na by next month, for example, ma-implement ito, no? Dahil yung IRR, hihintayin din po natin.
Meanwhile, a lawmaker is again pushing for a 14th month pay for all workers. Kabayan Party List Representative Ron Salo filed a bill seeking the additional pay for workers in the public and private sector regardless of employment status. Salo says the 13th month pay should be given on or before May 31st, ahead of the opening of classes, and the 14th month pay before Christmas. The lawmaker filed a similar bill in the 18th Congress, but it did not get past the committee level. World developments now. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi expected to visit Taiwan during her tour of Asia. The trip could spark even greater instability between the U.S. and China, which is now threatening military action. Beijing considers Taiwan a renegade province. Tristan Adalo tells us how this could affect the Philippines.
The Philippine government is closely monitoring the developments on the visit of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Asia, which may include a historic visit to Taiwan, something that China firmly rejects and has opposed in the recent days. In a statement, the DFA urges the U.S. and China to ensure proper communication and avoid any miscalculation and further escalation of tensions. The Philippines also expects the two countries to be responsible actors in the region. From Singapore, Pelosi is expected to travel to Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan. Taiwan is not included in her official itinerary. The Chinese Foreign Ministry slams Pelosi's possible Taiwan visit and warns that it could lead to serious consequences. Beijing adds that they are closely monitoring Pelosi's trip as a visit to Taiwan is considered a gross interference in China's sovereignty.
People's Liberation Army will not sit back. China will take resolute and strong countermeasures to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Foreign policy experts are also keeping close tabs on the developments in Taiwan because this could have a domino effect to the Southeast Asian region and the South China Sea issue.
It is important because Manila will become a buffer zone if in case Taiwan will be taken by force by China. The rivalry between the US and China will be intensified and the Philippines will have a crucial role in this competition and definitely the Philippines will also be affected.
Experts say that future developments in Taiwan could have potential impact on the country's national security and on the lives of thousands of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines, Guangdong, China.
Classes in quake-hit areas in northern Luzon will start on August 22nd. The same day, all schools nationwide are scheduled to open. The Education Department says they will put up temporary classrooms made of light materials and with roofing. It adds these classrooms can be set up in just 3 days. The agency says they're continuously coordinating with local governments for vacant lots or to use vacant lots in their areas.
We are focusing po on, aside from asking for additional budget from the DBM, we are focusing on quick interventions para po hindi maantala yung pag-aaral ng ating mga learners.
DepEd is asking the Budget Department for an additional 1.4 billion pesos for these classrooms. That's aside from the 16 billion pesos needed for the reconstruction of classrooms damaged by past storms. A historical site where one of the most remembered Filipino revolutionary leaders of the 1700s once took refuge suffered major damage from last week's earthquake. Our George Giles has that story.
This is the Carino House in Tayum Abra, a centuries-old structure built by Nicolas Carino, uncle of Filipina hero Gabriela Carino Silang. When Gabriela's husband Diego was assassinated after leading a successful battle against the Spaniards in Vigan, Ilocos Sur, Gabriela fled to this house to consolidate the remaining forces and continue the war against the colonizers.
She started there, calling the people, the officers and the soldiers of Diego Silang. They would meet down here at night.
But the powerful earthquake last Wednesday took a heavy toll on this historic structure, destroying a huge portion of this important site.
As you can see, it's been damaged. This is the old flooring. Now, this used to be where Gabriela Silang used to stay, pero hindi na siya na-maintain.
Beside the house, a museum was built by former Ambassador Rosario Carino after the death of her wife in 1993. It houses important artworks, both traditional and fine arts, from the Philippines and abroad. Part of the collection, a Juan Luna, a Fernando Amorsolo, and a Pablo Picasso. The museum also suffered a huge damage from the quake, forcing the family to close it to the public. The initial plan is to restore both the house and the museum on their own.
This thing is a work of nature. So, we have to accept our losses. We have to accept, try to save what we can in honor of my father. But well, like the saying goes, we will rise stronger, better. We started this without assistance from the government. We will do it without the assistance of the government.
Millions of pesos may be needed to restore this important heritage site, but the Carinos say they'll do whatever it takes to preserve the property of national significance, not just for them, but for the next generation who may be inspired by the heroism of a Filipina named Gabriela Silang. From Tayum Abra, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Up next on Newsnight, Gilas head coach Chot Reyes welcomes lawmaker support for the national basketball team. And still trending, the controversial dead air, the 2022 Binibining Pilipinas Coronation Night. More after the break. Welcome back. Gilas Pilipinas head coach Chot Reyes welcomes a Senate resolution seeking ways to support the team. Reyes told CNN Philippine Sports Desk he's open to assistance from both the public and private sectors. 5 senators look to review policies to help the men's national basketball team after dismal finishes in recent events. The squad fell out of the top 8 in the 2022 FIBA Asia Cup for the first time in 15 years. Over in the PBA, the Philippine Cup semis kick off tomorrow with defending champion TNT Tropang Giga facing the Magnolia Hotshots. The game tips off at 3 p.m. at the Araneta Coliseum in Quezon City. And at 6, the Meralco Bolts go head-to-head against the San Miguel Beermen. In entertainment, Binibining Pilipinas hosts Catriona Gray and Nicole Cordoves clear the air, or perhaps dead air, in announcing the winners at Sunday's coronation. Gray and Cordoves clarified on social media the results they announced on stage were accurate and that the event's tabulators even confirmed their validity. The statement comes after netizens speculated a Steve Harvey moment may have happened. There was about 3 minutes of silence, or dead air, before Miss Binibining Pilipinas International was announced. The hosts and pageant officials were seen in a huddle while this happened. Gray and Cordoves did not explain why there was a pause. Now for Star Wars fans, here's a sneak peek at the latest installment of the legendary franchise. Disney Plus released a trailer for Andor, which explores the beginning of the rebellion against the Galactic Empire. Diego Luna is back for his role as Cassian Andor and his character's evolution from a thief into a noble hero.
To steal from the Empire? To just walk in like you belong? They're so proud of themselves. So fat and satisfied. They can't imagine that someone like me would ever get inside their house.
The first 3 episodes stream on Disney Plus by September 21st. The platform has yet to arrive in the country. And from television to theaters, whether you're looking for thrills, chills, or the stories behind the headlines, there's a movie for you coming soon. CNN's David Daniel has a trio of trailers in tonight's Hollywood Minute.
We're doing something Saturday. The 3 of us, best holiday of the year, just like always. It'll be wicked.
Friends vow to spend the night locked in a supposedly haunted Halloween store. What could go wrong? Here's a look at the first trailer for Spirit Halloween, the movie, which arrives on VOD October 11th.
The commanding officer called you one of the best pilots he's ever seen. It must be hard being the naval aviator. Absolutely.
Devotion, inspired by a true story, focuses on 2 elite U.S. Navy fighter pilots during the Korean War. Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country and Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick star in the war drama, which flies into theaters November 23rd.
You really don't understand the things that you have until they're washed away from you.
A year after Hurricane Katrina, the population of New Orleans had dropped by half. And 15 years later, 100,000 residents still had not returned. The documentary Forced Change looks at the effects of that massive displacement of people and whether climate change makes it more likely in more places. Forced Change is now available on digital platforms. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa bayan sa inyong radyo. RPM DXKO, ang radyo ronda, tubig sa restaurant sa Cagayan de Oro. Sidiyahan na may galaon sa katawan, ang daw serbisyo sa kanan. Ang RPM DXKO radyo ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Bayanihan spirit is one of the most admirable values of our fellow countrymen. Every day, we see ordinary Filipinos turn into modern-day heroes. And one way people show this is through blood and organ donation. Just one blood donor can save up to 3 lives, and one organ donor can save up to 8. We'll talk more about what blood and organ donations can do for patients and how to register to become one. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Blood transfusions and organ transplants have granted many a second chance at life. Our guests are here today to tell us more about this. With us is Dr. Amiel de la Cruz, who is a nephrologist and the chairman of the Department of Medicine at the Medical City. Also with us is Dr. Charlene Noguera. She is a cornea and external disease specialist from the Asian Eye Institute. Now, every day, thousands of people need donated blood to keep them alive and well, practically. Now, we'll start the discussion with Dr. Amiel. Pag-usapan natin ang blood donations. This is something that a lot of our viewers, I'm sure, are very familiar about. Let's start first with some of the reasons why kailangan mag-donate ng blood.
Well, there are a lot of patients needing blood transfusion. For example, kidney patients. Kidney patients are prone to anemia. And every so often, these patients need donated blood. Now, for other cases, for example, those who are undergoing surgery, where you anticipate a lot of blood loss, blood donations are really very important. It would really be of great help to these patients.
Now let's talk about the blood mismo, Dr. Amiel. A lot of, especially for tertiary hospitals, for bigger hospitals, they have their own blood bank. But for the smaller hospitals, they might not. They might rely on other sources such as the Philippine Red Cross for their blood donations. When it comes to having blood readily available, where is the Philippines in that aspect?
Even in tertiary hospitals, which have blood banks, we do experience a lot of need. And there's a problem of lack of blood supply. So we also call on the Philippine Red Cross, but I think there's a need to encourage more blood donations so that, the network of hospitals needing it can benefit from blood transfusions to the National Red Cross.
Now, Dr. Amiel, pag-usapan natin yung actual blood donation dito. There are a whole set of qualifications. We won't go over them one by one. Let's talk about the overall condition ng magdo-donate, yung magbibigay ng blood. How should their overall physical being be?
What's most important is the one donating blood is healthy, feeling good at the time of blood donation, because the blood is screened anyway. The donated blood is screened for hepatitis B, for HIV. In fact, they say it's an instant checkup. When you donate blood, you instantly have a checkup. You get to be evaluated if you are a suitable donor. And then your blood gets to be screened for these viruses, for Hep B, for Hep C, and HIV.
No, Dr. Amiel, meron bang hindi pwedeng mag-donate ng blood? Maraming nagsasabi na kapag may tattoo, automatic, hindi na pwede mag-donate ng blood. Is this true?
I don't think it's automatic, no? Especially if that tattoo has been performed or has been there for quite some time. I think those who have just had a tattoo and who have not been screened properly or really have high-risk behavior for blood-related infections are discouraged from donating.
Now, Dr. Shar, with all of this, there's a lot of hesitations of a lot of people, especially whether they have a fear of needles or whether they want to donate or not. And one of that is they feel that the blood that they donate that's it. Our body has roughly 5 liters of blood. Kung mga 1 or 2 bags of blood ang dinonate, wala na yon. Is that true? Kung anong blood na binigay natin, hindi na ba natin maibabalik sa sarili natin?
It's good na you donate your blood because our body replenishes what we donated. So, gagawa yung body natin ng amount ng blood na dinonate natin, which is a good thing. So, they shouldn't be worried na nawala yung blood na yun. So, napapalitan yun ang katawan natin.
And Dr. Shar, is there a sense of community? Is there a sense na nakatulong ka sa ibang tao whenever you do donate blood?
Yeah, so definitely, no? So, you really help, no, the patients that need blood. So, ang dami-dami. So, dami-daming pasyente na kailangan ng dugo. So, if you donate, so it's really you helping a lot of people who need blood.
And Dr. Amiel, another common question that people have, especially when it comes to blood donation, kung anong hinihingi na type of blood. Are those the only ones who can donate? If the type being sought for, yun lang yung mababang supply, yung mga tao na yun lang ang pwede mag-donate?
Oh, because we encourage all blood types, no? All types of blood donation is welcome. Because, for example, your patient in the hospital is requiring type B, and you happen to be type A, the blood that you donate will not be transfused to that patient, but will be used by another patient. So any blood type, any type of blood donation is welcome.
Now, apart from blood transfusions, organ donations also save lives. When we return, we'll talk about its landscape here in our country. We're your partner in healthcare. Keep it here on MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk. Today, we are talking about donations, blood donations, organ donations, and how to be an organ donor because what you donate may save a life later on. Earlier, we discussed about blood donations. Now, let's talk about donating your organs or some of your organs for that matter. Dr. Amiel, let's talk about the kidneys because kidney disease is one of the most common diseases that requires organ transplant here in the Philippines. Now, before we talk about organ transplantation, let's talk about what happens, why the body needs a new organ.
When organs fail, no, when the organs cease to deliver its functions, for example, the kidneys, there's no other way to save the patient's life but to replace that kidney function either through dialysis or transplantation. So we do organ transplantation for all organs that have failed when it has ceased to function, without replacement, life will not be possible. The patient will not be able to survive.
If a live donor, for that matter, is going to donate one of their kidneys, they will be left with one. My question is, can a person live their life normally with just one kidney?
Definitely, no? A healthy living donor who'd like to donate one of his kidneys for as long as the patient is healthy, he does not have any chronic diseases like hypertension and diabetes, of course the patient will be able to survive with just one kidney. I think that's one of the most common misconceptions why some patients hesitate to donate.
Now, Dr. Amiel, a lot of our viewers maybe heard that whenever they transplant an organ, whether it be the kidney or something else, it has to be a match. It has to be, what exactly are we talking about here kapag kailangan itong ay matched?
Just like blood transfusion, it is blood type specific. So it's important to know your blood type, so you know to whom you can donate your organs to or your blood to. It's blood specific and it's tissue specific. Now, aside from blood typing, we also do tissue typing and cross-matching, because when you donate an organ or when you donate blood, it should be compatible with the recipient.
Now, Dr. Amiel, if someone needs a kidney badly, but none of his relatives are a good match, ano na ngayon ang options? Is there a wait list for that matter, a national list for transplanting of organs?
There is actually a national list for a central list that has the list of all transplant possible recipients. It's under the DOH. It's under the body called the Philippine Network for Organ Sharing. It's our counterpart to the United Network for Organ Sharing, which has the master list of all possible kidney transplant recipients.
I'd like to talk to Dr. Shar about another common organ that is transplanted here in the Philippines, and that are corneas. Let's talk about that. Dr. Shar, ano ba yung cornea natin, and why does it need, or why can it be transplanted into another person?
So this is the front part of our eye. It's the crystal, no? It's the crystal that covers the front part of our eye. So usually itong cornea na to, if there are pathologies or sakit, nagkakaroon siya ng peklat o nagkakaroon siya ng any opacity, haze, o usually yung common din na nangyayari dito sa Philippines is meron tinatawag na corneal dystrophy, yung Fuchs corneal dystrophy, wherein yung cornea ay mabilis mapagpag yung mga cells ng mga ito. So lalo siyang pumuputi or napupuno ng tubig. So yun yung mga sakit na kailangan palitan yung cornea ng pasyente.
Now, Dr. Shar, bakit ang cornea lang? Bakit hindi pwedeng i-donate yung buong mata?
Actually, sa ating eye bank, so may option silang i-donate yung whole eyeball ng pasyente or ng pag-donate or yung cornea lang o yung crystal. Kasi nagagamit din ng eye bank yung puti or yung tinatawag na sclera. So we can donate also the sclera or yung puti ng mata ng pasyente because we also use it in other surgeries.
As a reminder to our viewers, when it comes to cornea donations, ito po ay sa deceased donors lang ang pwede. Now, when it comes to corneal transplantation, meron din bang master list ba ito? Paano ba nakaka-avail ang mga taong kinakailangan ng corneal transplant, Dr. Shar?
So, fortunately sa Philippines, meron tayong Eye Bank Foundation of the Philippines. So, it's a non-profit organization that make sure na yung mga na-donate na cornea ay hindi masasayang or hindi mapupunta talaga siya sa tamang pasyente. So, sa eye bank, usually yung kaming mga cornea specialist, nagpapalista kami ng mga pasyente namin dun sa Eye Bank Foundation of the Philippines. Around 40 kami na cornea specialist sa buong Pilipinas. So, umiikot yung donors, kunyari, Dr. A, then Dr. B, ganon. So, iikot yon. So, imagine how many Filipino patients need cornea. So, as of today, we have 325 patients in the waiting list sa ating eye bank. So, kulang na kulang po talaga yung donors na nakukuha natin from dito sa Philippines. So, usually po, ang waiting time natin napakatagal sa ngayon because of the pandemic din, no? Isang factor din yun. So, 6 months to 1 year, ganun ang inaantay ng isang pasyente para sa cornea.
No, Dr. Shar, when it comes to the corneas as well, like the kidneys, pinag-usapan ni Dr. Amiel kanina, yung what it means na kailangan match ito. Ganun din ba ka-delicate when it comes to corneal transplant?
Yeah. Compared to the kidney, yung corneal transplant is much more, mas successful yan. So, because it doesn't need any typing or matching. So, yan ang maganda sa cornea. Kasi ang cornea natin, yung crystal na yan, is vascular. Wala siyang mga ugat. So, hindi kailangan na yung type A lang ang makapag-donate sa type A din na pasyente. So, usually, ang eye bank, so no matching needed. Ang titigan lang ng eye bank is nirule out yung mga infection na pwedeng makaasa dun sa pasyente from the donor.
When we return, we'll discuss the quality of life of someone who has undergone an organ transplantation and how you can register to become a donor. Your health is our mission here on NetTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk. We're discussing about organ transplantation as well as blood transfusions. We've been talking about how a kidney transplantation is done. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Amiel, for a successful kidney transplantation, on the life of the recipient, what type of quality of life, what type of improvement do we see with that new kidney that he or she just received?
Kidney transplantation has a survival advantage over dialysis. And patients who have chosen to undergo kidney transplantation over dialysis or were shifted from dialysis, one very important thing is they become free from dialysis treatments. No? They are, they gain that freedom, no more dialysis every so often. And they can now be more mobile. They can travel, they will be on continuous medications, but that is the closest that can ever become to normal.
Now let's talk about, Dr. Amiel, doon sa nagbigay ng kidney, doon sa donor side. Isa na lang yung kidney niya. What are some of the limitations they might have?
For as long as you're a healthy donor, then there is really nothing to worry about your health condition. Now, because you have only one kidney, it's important that you get to be seen and followed up by a physician to make sure that you do not develop any problems with that remaining kidney of yours. For as long as you remain healthy, even if you develop some chronic diseases later on, and there is no problem, there is no obstruction to that kidney, you can survive just like any other individual with just one kidney.
Dr. Shar, let's talk about those who have received naman a corneal transplant. How much improvement with their vision can they achieve? Talk about what type of quality of life they might have after a corneal transplant.
Corneal transplant is a very successful transplant in the body, no? So they will really see after a corneal transplantation. So usually, especially for those patients who have bilateral disease, so it's really life-changing for them to receive a cornea donor so that they can have another chance at sight.
Dr. Amiel, now let's talk about how someone can make that step, make that decision to donate their organs. For the kidney, when you want to donate your organs, it is when you are deceased. Let's make that clear. So it is unethical and is unlawful to sell your kidney. So let's talk about that. How can someone make that decision to be an organ donor?
You can always fill out that organ donation card that you see that is sometimes given out in hospitals during Kidney Week, or it's downloadable. The organ donation card is downloadable from the DOH site. Sometimes they call it Lifeline Organ Donation Card. You put your name there and then you express your willingness to donate your organs after you meet an accidental death.
How about blood, Dr. Amiel? Let's talk about blood donations. If someone wants to donate blood, where can they go?
You can just walk into any blood bank of a hospital, and they will certainly entertain you and welcome you. You can also go directly to the Philippine Red Cross. They encourage blood donations. And like I said, you get an instant free checkup. You get to be evaluated medically, and your blood is screened too for Hep B, Hep C, and syphilis, and other bloodborne diseases.
Now, Dr. Shar, let's talk about those who want to make the decision to possibly help someone by donating their corneas when they do pass on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's a donor pledge form that they can download at ibankphil.org. So this is the website of the iBank Foundation of the Philippines. So just fill out the donor form there, and then of course, as what Dr. Amiel said, so you inform your family member of your willingness to donate.
With that, thank you very much, Dr. Amiel de la Cruz and Dr. Charlene Noguera, for being with us today, sharing your insights and giving us some more knowledge, especially when it comes to organ transplantation. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.